Hello, welcome to Flory Models Tuesday Q&A, something a little bit different. You've got myself and Steve with us today, and we've got our new setup. So apologies if this goes horrendously wrong, because this is totally new for us. Obviously, we're recording this live. If this works, then obviously we'll do it as a live stream next week. But generally, we've got a new thing now. So we have Cam 1, which is obviously myself. We have Steve on his own over there. We also have close-up Cam underneath, just down on here, and then obviously we can do all your questions and bits and pieces down under here. Christ, that's a long way away by telly from here, and it's a small thing, but I have got them otherwise. But you guys then can obviously follow along with the questions as we do them, as we go down on here. So Steve's been very good and answered all his questions, and he's up to date, but in future you can drop him a few in here as well. Okay, so if I just go back to where we are. So Steve, just before we get going, how are you working on? What are you working on at the moment?
I'm working on my entry for the World War One armour SIG, which is a artillery tractor and an 8-inch gun. So all that's gone into primer now, so that's coming on nicely. And I'm also trying to finish off my Abrams ABV. So I've got the hundreds of bits.
Yeah.
Side of it, so I've just been concentrating on them really, get them out of the way.
Brilliant.
Move on to something else.
Fantastic. Any big projects for the summer? Any big builds or anything you're planning on?
I wouldn't mind doing my British tank transporter.
Mm-hmm.
That's and also try and get on and do me 132nd Eurofighter with all the resin stuff that I bought for it.
Yeah, no, to be honest, it's one of those kits that looks very daunting, but actually when you get going with it, it's actually pretty good. And working with Revell as I have been over the last couple of builds now, it's not too bad, you know. It's that thing, once you get over the initial thing of, right, it's going to be covered in flash, the ejector pins, a few sink marks, things like that, actually they're still pretty good. And as far as value is concerned, I think they're a bargain, a lot of their kits, because it allows you then to spend the extra money on all the goodies, instead of spending a fortune on a kit, then on the goodies, and you've got a very expensive kit at the end of the day. So, anyway, right, first question up is from Shamir. Hello, Phil. Do you know if there's a way that you can clean your airbrush after using AK Extreme metal colours besides their own AK Extreme cleaner? I think it's quite expensive for the amount you get. Okay, first question. Steve, have you cleaned out? How do you do yours? Have you got Extreme cleaner?
I haven't tried using my Extreme. I did have it in my airbrush, and I just used some standard cellulose thing I had kicking around.
Yeah.
Just buy it cheap from hardware store or an art shop. It's a lot cheaper than using their dedicated airbrush cleaner, 'cause it's probably the same stuff anyway.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when you've got like a hot product, or the way I look at it is that I just tend to stick lacquer thinners through it, because that will clean out anything. I use it for cleaning out acrylics as well, because it will literally eat and strip through anything. And as Steve rightly says, if you go down the route of buying, you know, just from like an auto parts shop or something else like that, you can pick up 5 litres of cellulose thinners for peanuts. It's not very expensive at all, versus buying, as you say, quite rightly, they are quite expensive, the small little bottles of their own cleaner. The only thing I would recommend though is using a normal airbrush cleaner, like an acrylic one, after you've blown it through, because that way it will just keep everything moistened up, and that's the difference. Because if you're going to be using like pure alcohols, IPAs as cleaners and that, just afterwards it will lubricate the airbrush and it stops them drying out, and then seals and that getting crispy. And all bits and pieces like that. But I should think any type of lacquer thinner will do the trick, because I don't think it's anything particularly special in there that I'm aware of. Also, I'm planning on painting a P47 Thunderbolt for Meet My Metal. What do you think are the right colours for this build? I've also thought these colours will do the trick. Okay, white aluminium or aluminum, depending who it is very, very light. I don't know if you've tried it, but it is it's right. It's like it's white. Dark aluminium, yeah, polished aluminium, the dural aluminium, titanium, the matte aluminium, and jet exhaust. If you've got those colours, yes, they'd be the ones I would use. Certainly. I don't know, Steve, would you be with those?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't use all of them.
No.
Because you could end up looking like a patchwork quilt. It just look a bit stupid. So use maybe 3 of them, and then use some oil paints to add a bit of weather into it. Slight change the shade of the colour, probably the better way to go.
Oh, and also be careful with that polished aluminium. It is very shiny. That would be my other thing as well. If you're doing it as a World War II bird modern, a restored one, then yes, you'll have a beautiful finish. But it's pretty much the shiniest metal finish I've found. I would put it very close to chrome from other manufacturers. It's very, very shiny. So as you say, I think like the normal aluminium and the dark aluminium probably be my two colours I'd use most of all over it. But as Steve points out as well, what you could do is obviously give it a wash and then do panels and just mask them off and give them like an oil wash over the top, and that way it will darken them down a little bit, and you can give it various weathering techniques. But because you're using like a hot product, you can go in there with pretty much everything over the top, and you're not going to wreck it or anything else like that. The jet exhaust is very, very strong. Obviously you'd probably just be you're thinking of exhausts and stuff like that. There might be other ways of doing those, because it is quite dark on that one. The titanium as well is quite a dark colour. So just be careful, as you say, you don't run the risk of making it into like a patchwork quilt, really, at the end of the day. My way usually is just like I did with the MiG. You do all over and then just pick out a couple of panels and then do those, rather than going around and doing it all in sections. Right, Jeffrey Scott asks, "Hi Phil, after watching your review on the Revel 190, with all those upgrades, are you think that which you are making your summer super build? I would like to ask if you've ever, after reviewing a kit, stopped your present build to make that kit. It looks like you can't wait to get building this summer. P.S. This is my first post." Welcome, Jeff. You've done 5 now. I don't get the chance, really. The only thing sometimes I'll do is that if the other build's a bit more exciting, which tends to happen a lot, I'll get one build I'm a bit bored with, or it's getting stale, and if that's why I like to do 2 builds at once, because then I'll push on heavily with the second, and sometimes I'll literally push well ahead because I'm on a roll with it as well. So certain times it's a case of I try and keep each build slightly staggered from each other so they don't end at the same time, but all too often I find that I get to the weathering sections and painting and I really push forward very quickly. The first bit can take forever and it goes through, but as for stopping a build, no, because obviously you guys I think would be a bit niffed if I'm like, yeah, no, stop that, I'm off to build the Shackleton halfway through the Halifax and say, yeah, I'm going to go and do the Shackleton now. But yeah, that's my point. Steve?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
You've got quite a few on the go though, haven't you?
Yeah, I must admit I do, yeah. But I kind of lost my mojo last summer for various reasons, and now I'm getting back into it, yeah. I am going to try and clear quite a few of the smaller builds off my bench and then get back onto my ship and do some other bigger builds as well.
I think the trouble that sometimes you get is that, I don't know if Steve's the same, but for me, when I used to build for myself, which was a few years ago, sometimes I used to usually build big stuff was my big thing. So it'd be 30-second stuff or very large 70-second scale bombers, stuff like that. And it was just that thing that you'd get bored because it's taking forever to come together. So you end up doing lots of other things and it just sits there gathering dust at the back and you never go back to doing it. So it's quite nice in some ways that I get pushed along to do these, because otherwise I probably would be a bit of a nightmare and do that quite a bit. Okay, so Bill says, Prezino, is that? Prezesno? Hi Phil, I'm new to the forum, really enjoying everything so far. I do have a quick question. I have cerebral palsy, which occasionally gives me spasms, particularly in my hand. Usually this is no big deal, unless I'm masking canopies. I've broken 2 1/72 scale Hawker Hurricane canopies recently. I finally got it done. Would a liquid mask help me? Any suggestions would be gratefully anticipated. Oh, appreciated even. Let me just try and skew this up together. Did we work? I'm trying to get these to line up. There we go. Actually, funny enough, Steve is guilty of this because I mentioned in a recent build, one of the live shows, I think it was, wasn't it, Steve? That you see the Japanese lot do a lot of masking, but I couldn't get the mask oil to do it. My usual one, or the one I like, is the Neo one by Mr. Hobby. And then Steve quite rightly pointed out I'm using the wrong one, and we need to use this one. So Steve had a go. You got yours first, didn't you?
Yeah.
And said, this is the stuff you want, it's great, because you can obviously cut it and it doesn't roll up like the other one does. And to be honest, when we were having a bit of a team thing over the weekend, I have put it on here, but I haven't tried to cut it yet. The thing you notice about this stuff, when it dries, it's not rubbery, is it?
No, it's totally different.
Yeah, that's because, to be honest, live, this is the first time I've actually tried it. Hold on, let me just try our close cam here. I've got to remember which one it is now. Here it is. So this is this other stuff you can see down here. And it looks like it would just be rubbery and all the rest of it. But to be honest, this stuff isn't. It's dry to the touch. In fact, it feels like paint that's been painted on. None of it is rubbery. Now, I haven't tried cutting it or anything else yet, but Steve has, and has had sort of, great success with it, without it going too bad. My only thing is, it's using a very sharp blade and trying not to cut yourself into lots of little bits, isn't it? So if you have a spasm whilst you're there with your X-Acto knife in your hand, look out, because that would be the only thing. Recommended, you could always go down the mask set, which I haven't got one here actually, but you can buy, obviously, Edard pretty much make masks for everything, and they're pretty straightforward because you can just literally peel them off the sheet and then stick them on and do it that way, and that way you're totally safe. And to be honest, I thought about getting it for this one, because it's one of those things, there's just so much glass on it, all that framework is a right pain to mask up, and it'd be so much quicker just to literally peel them off the sheet, stick them down, and away you go. And when I get closer to it, I might end up doing it for the sake of sort of £7, I think it is. You could do something like that, really. Steve, anything else to add?
If it's breaking the canopies, I don't know if you do it, but you can roll up some white tack or plasticine and just stick it on the inside of the canopy while you're masking it.
Yeah.
So that if you do, your hand does spasm and you drop it or grasp it, hopefully will stop it from bending and snapping.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and it's one of those things which I always advise people to do, but never do myself. But it is that thing. Over the years, I've broken canopies before. They're a bit stronger than they used to be back in the day. I think that's what that is. But as you say, if you get some white tack, sort of like this stuff, here we go, close cam. And you have something else like this, and then literally you can just press it up into the inside of the canopy before you work on it. So you just grab your lump like this, okay, and then what you don't want to do though is push it in now really hard, because otherwise you're going to crack it. So just gently mould it in and give it a nudge and just sit it in. That way it will just strengthen it up. So if you are pinching from the side, you're not going to end up cracking it, which is obviously what's been happening, and has happened to me, because I've broken more canopies than I'd care to remember over the years, because they can be, some of them, I think it was a tornado canopy, I had the misfortune of breaking 2 on the belt after getting a replacement one sent in. Same thing, taking out the centre seam, crack, and then I got another one in and did the same thing to it. So never a good thing on that one. Oh, feedback. Okay, so Jason Meadows. Oh look, when we go back, we go up into here. See, we found a design fault in the system here. I'll have to rectify that. I know of a little plan for that one. God, I've got to find myself back in the menu. Hold on. That was it. We were there. Jeffrey. Okay, there we go. Hold on, I've lost my thing there. Right, okay, so Jason Meadows says, "Hi Phil, I noticed there's a lot of questions about future on this week's Q&A. Continuing on this topic, my question is, did you dip your canopies, or would you be concerned with it yellowing?" Yes, that does concern me, but I still do it. I have had a canopy. I had an F4 Phantom, which, to be honest, it met its maker. I did it in flight. It was one of the very first builds we ever did here, probably back in around about 2005. And I had it in a window, like of all places, as a bit of a test. And on one side it was grey, and on the other side it was gold grey, where the sun had bleached it completely. And that said, the canopy as well hadn't gone yellow, but it had started to fog a little bit. So that would be my main concern with that. But yellowing is one of those things. I think if you've done like a white car, for instance, or a white airliner, then the yellowing is going to show up really, really bright on that. But if you're on a dark colour, obviously you're not going to see it as much. And if you're on yellow, you'd be absolutely perfect. But that is the thing. And on clear parts, I don't think you'll see it as strong, but say white. And to be honest, we've spoken about this over the years a lot. One of the members put up, I can't remember who it was now, he had built quite a large car that was white, and he had said, look what's happened to it, and it had gone yellow, literally. We're not talking bright yellow, but it had definitely a yellow hue right the way over, and that's because he glossed it in Future. But also, we're talking about Future that was 2000, 2003, things like that. So in those days, now they have new modern formula Futures. It could be that that's why you don't get it anymore, because they've protected it with UV protection and all things like that. But not being that up on it, I'm not too sure. P.S. The review of the FW190 is fantastic. In fact, it looks... in fact, that I can't look at the one in my stash without thinking about all the goodies you showed for yours. I'm sure my bank manager will appreciate it. I've noticed somebody just started one on the forum as well, isn't it, with all the goodies on it. So that's it, no pressure. Okay, Bryn says, could you give your recommendations with regards to thinning and air pressures for Vallejo metal colour paints? You also did recommending... also, do you recommend thinning Stynel res? If so, how much? I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and your other half for all that you do on the site. The other half, that must be you, Nasty. In front and off, behind the camera and behind the scenes. It's the best modelling site on the planet, without a doubt. Thank you, Bryn. Right, okay. The trouble with when you say about thinning air pressures and all the rest of it, I'm sure Steve will be the same as well, is that what I use will probably be different to what he uses, because there's so many variables when you're talking about air pressures. I'm not one of these people who has an air pressure gauge sat up. It's one thing I got rid of many years ago. I tend to just see what's happening. I have a little Mac valve on my airbrush. Okay, and literally I'll just dial it in. If it's getting it sounds really fast and heavy, I'll just turn it down a little bit, just ease off the trigger just a little bit and lay it down a little bit slower. And then, like, this is because I've just cleaned it out, okay? Because to be honest, it's been Stynel resin, which I'll show you in a minute. But my working one is almost tuned by ear. I can tell really what it's doing by listening to the paint, listening to the flow, rather than what it's telling me on the actual needle on the gauge, which I can't see anyway because it's down in a soundproof cupboard underneath. So that is my point to it. So I would really think it's better to listen to how your airbrush is running. Also, what's it doing? When you're spraying it, are you thinking, so that's a bit fast, turn it down a little bit, back off it a little bit. But I don't have a hard and fast gauge to do it, because also you've got the variables of the needle and the nozzle size you're spraying with, how thick your paint is when you put it into your airbrush. So if you did it as like a 50-50 mixed Tamiya, I know you want to be around about 18 to 22 psi is what I spray. You speak to somebody else, they'll go for something completely different. And that's the trouble with it. And that's why I stopped giving out air pressures and ratios, because I used to find that people would say to me, that doesn't work, that's really too thick, it's spitting and all over the place. But they're in a really humid environment with not much moisture, or something else like that. All the different variables can make massive difference to airbrushing. So it's better to always listen to your airbrush. If it sounds like it's struggling, turn up the air pressure. Okay, if it sounds it's blasting it through really quickly, ease off the air pressure. And again, distances and everything else, it's like sitting on a hill doing clutch control, or being in a helicopter and you've got rudders versus torque and all of that. It's a balancing act between all these different things. But Steve, what do you use on yours?
Pressure, I haven't a clue what it's at.
Yeah.
A clue. I just use my mount valve and just listen and look at what it's doing, just like you.
Yeah.
If the paint's hitting it and you can see it, you're putting too much down, I'll just adjust the valve and I'll just play around.
Yeah. And I think, it's a good example. When I've painted this one this morning, to be honest, I had every intention of painting this today, but I've got caught up doing the bomber a bit. But the classic example is when I came to put the black coat onto this guy, my Stynel res was too thick. So I thinned it. Again, I thinned it with IPA, got my bottle here, and I thinned it out a bit. And as I was putting it on, it was really textured. It was looking like orange peel because it was going on. The trouble with that is it's going on too thick, too much air pressure. Okay, so that was the thing. So it was like, okay, back off the air pressure, you know, backing off of everything a little bit, lighter, more dusty coats, and built it up, and it was absolutely fine and no problem at all. But it is that thing. It's a case of listening to what your airbrush is doing. Audio, I think, is one of the best things because, like, if my airbrush is struggling, you can hear it struggling. You know, the classic is sometimes you just put like water or thinners or airbrush going through, go full tilt and just blast it. You can hear what it's up to. Sometimes you can hear it and it just doesn't sound like a nice even hiss. It's like flapping and quacking and all the rest of it. Probably got dirty nozzle, so it needs to be cleaned out or something else. Or if it's like spitting, stopping and starting, again, it's not fully clean. You want to sort it out before you get going with the paint. So it's more of an audio thing of listening and then looking at your paint. But probably, you know, from the point of view of me now, I tend to just listen to what the airbrush is up to. If it sounds like it's struggling, I'll just up the air pressure. If it seems to be hoofing it through a little bit quick here, then obviously I'll back it off, okay? And you're looking to see what's coming out. If it seems to be, you know, quite a large pattern, you can knock it all back and bring it all back in because you're just wasting paint if you're spraying it everywhere. But classic was with the Steiner Res with this, it's when I first used it in my airbrush, that's why the other one's all plugged in with this one. It's got the 0.4 needle in it. It was just going absolutely everywhere, and it wasn't working very well. It was like stopping, starting, and everything else. So it was a case of, right, we got this out, we stripped it down, we cleaned it. I found quite a lot of Steiner Res, if I'm honest, was in the nozzle of this from the last one. Cleaned it out, and it was fine afterwards. But then it was putting down too much paint. So again, knocked down the air pressure a bit. Not quite as heavy-handed on the trigger, and we just put down a light coat and everything else. One quick tip for you, which happened to me on this one, was that I was drying it off with a hairdryer because I had a couple of bits where it had really come out a little bit too thick. Okay, and this was on the wing. So what happened was I was with a hairdryer and I was on quite a low-speed hot setting, and it started to crack the Steiner Res. And what it is, it's drying too quickly and it's shrinking back on itself, and it went like egg crack all over this wing. So it was a case of, right, so I made up a very thin mix with IPA and I gave it 2 coats right the way over it and then didn't attempt to dry it. I just let it sat here and dry naturally and it's all gone. But quick thing to remember, that don't artificially dry this stuff too quick because it doesn't like it and just cracks up and looks horrible and all the rest of it. But you can save it, say a couple of coats over the top and it's absolutely fine. So, that's all right. So yeah, that's it. Basically, just listen to your airbrush, I think, would be my top tip for that one. Okay, so is that someone answering another one? Yeah, that's Mark answering it. Okay, so Stephen Goodman asks, "Hi Phil. A few posts back, Jason Meadows asked about yellowing of dipped canopies. I've had issues with that using Future, but wanted to flag up another potential gotcha. Have you ever had a problem with the Future canopies reacting to Tamiya tape, leaving a residue behind? I often have to leave the mast for some time, as I usually get work on my models at the weekend. This has been a problem in the past. The Revel Typhoon canopy needed to be sanded back, repolished to be able to save it. The windscreen came out crystal clear, but the bubble was a right mess." I think he means the back canopy. Love the show, looking forward to the 190. Yes, if you dip a canopy and it's not totally gone off, then you put the Tamiya tape on. It's like the glue reacts to the tape and it can artificially sort of get in amongst it. So when you peel it off, you get like a mess behind it. That's purely time. The canopy needs to be left a long time to dip. And that's why, to be honest, I don't tend to dip canopies as much as I used to. I tend to polish them out, which I know is a shameless plug, but the Flory Models Polisher, available from all good stores like us, is the way to go, because you can polish them up. You don't need dipping. Or that would be my thing anyway. But yeah, I have had that happen. Steve, you had that happen?
Yeah, I've had it happen, but to be honest, now I very, very rarely dip a canopy. I'm like you, I'll polish it and then tape it up. And the benefits of doing it that way as well, if you haven't masked it properly and you get a bit of paint bleeding under the tape, you can easily then just get rid of the excess tape, paint with a cocktail stick.
Yeah.
And then over time, just get your canopy and give it another wipe or give it another polish. You know, if it's nowadays, they're coming out with the canopies, the clear plastic, is far superior than it was 10 years ago
Yeah.
when everybody started dipping the canopies. So now you don't really need to do it as much.
No. I think that's the big thing is to say it's if you're dealing with perhaps 72nd scale canopies and that, it always used to be that thing. People would dip them to get a more crystal clear look and all the rest of it. But modern canopies now, and some of the manufacturers out there, they do them and they're absolutely crystal clear. Other canopies, as I say, I've seen have been a right dog, but you know, to be honest, like the one for that 190, the canopy, some of the canopy isn't very nice on those, but luckily it's the ones you don't use for it. But it looks, you know, it would show up, especially on 132nd scale. So I might think about dipping it. The other way, of course, to get around the problem is paint it first, then dip it. Because if it's just framework, you're not going to notice they're very glossy anyway. Okay, and then that way you could literally just give the edges of it a very light sand just to knock them off and make it a bit more flatter on the painted areas, because as long as you're using a very fine grit, you can just take the shine off of it and do it that way. So instead of thinking, right, okay, do it. So mask out your canopy, do all the bits and pieces to it, paint it, unmask it, then polish it, and then just mask up the actual paintwork so you're protecting it and do it that way. So just do it backwards. Okay, so who was that? That was the... We're almost meeting these up. Okay, so Craig says, hi Phil, in the prize draw section you mentioned the thing. Yeah, we covered that in the thing. We've done that one. Chris Mackey, let's go down to Chris. I haven't heard from Chris for a while. Is he enjoying his retirement? Hi Phil, love using Stynal Res, or however you spell it. The problem I have with it is cleaning up the airbrush afterwards. It seems to really thicken up the end of a session, almost congealing in the cup. So a few questions. One, I saw in one of your videos the remaining liquid in the bottle after use. What do you use? I use IPA, but we've had this before on one of the other shows. Make sure this is the 99.5%. They call it rubbing alcohol, I think, in different parts of the world. So just make sure it's one of those. But if you've got a hot product, anything like lacquer thinners will do the trick with it, and anything else. The only thing I have found is if you use like X20A, I don't know, it doesn't seem to break it down as well. It tends to not go on. I've tried it as a thinner and you get, I don't know, it just looks patchy. It doesn't seem to react. It almost like pulls apart from it. It's alright if you give it a damn good mix, but if you just to give it a light-hearted couple of bits of X20A, give it a rub round and all the rest of it, it's not really doing the trick with it. What do you clean up with it afterwards? IPA. So, you know, I've got bottles of everything now in the old airbrush cleaner ones. So we've got X20A in that one and IPA in that one. I'll get them all round the wrong way. But yeah, I do it that way. Clean it out, no problem at all. Do you add more thinners to the colour cup before spraying it? If so, what type? Again, it's IPA. That's what I used on this one when we were saying about the wing, spoke about a minute ago. It was IPA, thinned it more than 50-50, so it was really wet, and then just let it self-level. Had no problem with it at all. But as I said, we have had, I can't remember what week it was on, but one of the guys, wasn't it, Steve, and he had saying it was thickening up with it, but we think he had a different type of IPA. They do two flavours of it apparently, so not sure on that one. Matt asks, hi Phil, first wanted to wish you a happy birthday. Have a great day on the 17th. Thank you very much. Got my medal, badge and sticker set for the group build on the 8th of March. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you very much. Wanted to see if there's any updates about the Kit Buyers Club in the United States. You talked about it a few weeks ago. What would be it would be exciting to join, since I've noticed you get some kits even months before they're available over here. Yeah, I know we keep speaking about this. I do have to say the Kit Buyers Club isn't actually me. It's not Flory Models as such. It's a separate company that is obviously heavily involved with us and various bits and pieces. They're the guys who took over the sales of the washes and the various bits and pieces, sanders and all of that. It's them working it. The trouble that you have is obviously one is we'd technically be exporting, so that's licensing and all that stuff that goes with it again, insurances, but the big thing is postage costs. Still, to get stuff to the US is extremely expensive. Around the UK we can get any kit anywhere for a tenner next day, but when you're trying to get it to the US and everything else, and it comes with the customs, the VAT and all things like that, it becomes a bit of a living nightmare. And I know they're trying to sort it, but it is just one of those things that's going to take a bit of time. and they can make their way through. But hopefully they'll be unveiling things and different projects and stuff they're working on in the summer. So that's what they're going with that. Can't wait for the 109 build. I have the same kit, but doing the cheaper version. So can't wait to build along with you. Thanks again, Matt. No problem, Matt. That was Matt there. Just trying to keep up with these. Okay, David asks, hi Phil, great show as always. Looking forward to seeing how the new camera and live edit works. Well, we hope you're liking it. Live show broadcast. Quick question. I'm doing the Hobby Boss F14A, yes still, and I've painted it in the early naval scheme, white underside, light grey on the top. How do you apply the bleaching and corrosion effects over white? I tend to do it post-wise with washes. I've got a couple of them on the go up there you can go and have a look at. Obviously the most modern one for me doing it would be the Intruder for a big kit like that, but obviously go and have a look at the F4 Phantom as well and things. You can off-colour the paint a little bit and then come in with greys, very light greys, to give that corrosion control look that you go around panel lines with and do stuff like that. I don't know what other ones we've got down there that are in that form. We've done a few things over the years, as I say, but in that scheme for the white one, go and have a look at the Intruder. That's probably the best quality video and shows it at length about doing it, because then you can actually spray over the top of the wash. If the wash has grimed it all down, you can go with white over the top of it again to break it up and mottle it up and everything else, and then can go in with some very light grey, i.e. white mixed with a tiny bit of grey, and then put it along the panel lines to get that sort of corrosion control look that naval aircraft have, where they've had the touch-ins around edges where they blow them in on board the carrier. Steve, any way you do yours?
Yeah, I'd go slightly off-white to start with, and then you can always bleach it with just pure white. And similar to you, I'd concentrate on weathering the white and do all my post-shade and do it afterwards. If you start dirtying it up, and then you can go back and add a touch of pure white over the top, and that'll just let the panels spring to life. But you also have to remember, if a lot of the white is on the underside, so it's not going to get as much bleaching as you think. You just really want to grime it rather than think about bleaching it.
Yeah, it is, and you know, even what you're doing the same with the top side, it's all that same type of thing. Probably a good one to look at would be the Tomcat if you wanted to, sorry, not Tomcat, the F4B, because that's pretty heavy weathering on that one. If you want a more all over grimy, then have a look at the Intruder. But just think about it in the way I do it is that sort of thing in real life, that it would be white, then it would get really grimy, then they would touch it all in afterwards. So you're just doing the same type of processes as you work around. But as Steve says, go in there with an off-white first. You know, and then somebody could say, what would you go off with? You could either put a dab of grey in with it, but another one that I've done in the past which works quite well, if you take something like, where is it, the Deck Tan, which is Tamiya XF 55, a drop of that in there, because it's that sort of, it will just give you that more US Navy look to it. It has that sort of little bit of cream in there. That way it will give you that off colour. When you go in with the white, it will you will see it, it will show. But you should say the greys will make it a different way of doing it. If you go in there, say with a little touch of Deck Tan and that, it will just give it a slight creamy edge to it, and it will give it a better looking white, I think. But it's one of those things, you play with it, you add a bit of weathering, come back with weathering, go away with weathering. But say the Phantom one's a good one, because I actually went over that and shaded it after the weathering wash with the original colour. After we'd done all the rest of it, I went straight back in, straight out of the bottle, that light gold grey, and just went right the way over it and put it all back in. And it gives it a nice break-up, bleached look, and that anti-corrosion look to everything. Okay, many thanks and happy birthday. Thanks, Dave. Okay, Paul Martin's got a picture. This is where it comes in handy now, look, because we can see, well, sort of. There we go. Hi, Phil. I'm building the Battlestar Galactica Viper in the group build. I'm at the point that I've got a decision to make. I have a Viper landed or in landed or in flight. I have ordered the Cylon Raider, big kit, to go with it. I just don't know what to do. To have it in the battle with the Raider or in a landing bay. Trouble is, you're going to go with the landing bay, you've got to build the landing bay. That would be my thing to it all. I would have bought the Raider regardless, having entered the group build, I'd really be grateful if you could give me the benefit of your experience. I trust your knowledge. Dangerous. Thanks again, Paul. Yeah, it looks like, because you've got all the lights and the gear on it anyway, I would probably go for it in the landing config. It's nice with the old LEDs and the bits and pieces. You see it on there. If I scroll down a touch so people see the lights. If you're going to do it in flight, you've got to think how you're going to mount it. That is the thing. I've got it coming up with this one. I've bought some really nice sort of hex domed nuts for this to screw through the acrylic on this one. So hopefully it will give that thing of being mechanical as well as that. But when you're doing something on like sci-fi and you want it to look like it's moving, a good touch with that, if you did the acrylic rod in triplicate, I'm not saying that massive, but if you could do it with a sweep, it would look it quite futuristic, and had it just up at an angle or something else. That would be quite a nice look for it if you're going to do it in flight. If you're doing it in flight, I'm not sure about your build. I must admit I haven't been through it, but where's your battery and your power all going to be? If it's internal to it, then it's no problem. If it's external, you've got to think about, right, okay, where am I going to run the wires? If you're using clear acrylic, you can't just run it down the rod. If you're going to do a brass stand or something else like we did with the Star Destroyer, obviously it was hollow brass tubes that the stand was made out of. The wiring all came down through there to the base unit and then plugged in the mains, and away you went like that. So you do have to think about where you're going to put the battery power or how you're going to power it. If it's in a ground display, you can obviously just run it down through a leg or just down the side of a leg to hide it, or you could pretend it's a power plug-in unit underneath it, things like that, like we did with the Phantom, and make it look like a bit of a diorama and hide your power supply that way. So it's really your choice on it. Just think about power, how you're going to lose that, if you're going to be doing it in the ground, if you're going to do it in flight, where you're going to put the power supply. If it's internal, as I said, you go for it. But as I say, I think sci-fi stuff again would look really nice on an acrylic display base, but things I think wouldn't work would be like an X-Wing, because the engines are too far apart. So to have that on an acrylic stand with it coming up, I think it just wouldn't work, because it would look like spaghetti hanging out the back. But a Viper, where it's nice and close together with the three engines, will look quite nice with it coming up. Something else like that. Just give it that sort of look of speed and movement and all things. So yeah, but the choice is yours. Steve, anything you'd?
Well, I've got this kit and I've got to do mine on a base. And what you can get is I've got a pilot's badge from the TV series. They do replicas, and I've just got to put that on the base next to it. You're just going to make a nice little base display. So that's probably the way I'd go.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to go massive over the top. You say with the base, with, as you say, a little bit of prop item with it like that would go really nice. As I say, you don't have to quite build the launch tunnel, although it'd be cool. Stick that on there. Okay, so there we go, Paul. Okay, last one on this page. Neil Smiley. Hi, Phil. Got a number of questions for you. Hopefully it's short. I'm looking for a colour match for the RAF Randall's anti-flash white on the TSR2. Sorry, for the red and blue. Have you got them anywhere, Steve? Just
No.
off of hand? I don't know what they are offhand. Also, where do you get your bases from? I tried on eBay, just bases, but they're £5 to £7 range, not 2 to 3, as you often state. Also, what's a good size for a 1/48 scale jet, say a MiG-29, 15, F4 size, etc. Now, I don't even know where my Bible is, or even if it would say it. Where is my paint Bible? I don't even know where my paint Bible has gone. I seem to have put it somewhere. They are standard BS colours, aren't they? British standard colours for the RAF Randall, red and blue.
Yeah, I'm just having a look.
Oh, right, there you go. Steve's on that one. As for bases, to be honest, if you go onto eBay, so I can't guarantee they're always there, but I tend to look at things in bulk. You can, if you put in there like wooden bases bulk, it will take you to one where you can buy and they have, instead of just buying one or two or something else like that, I bought a load of them in a bulk deal. So it was like various size bases, all pre-done. They're obviously made in China or something else like that, because they've all got the bays on the bottom. They come in a little box with bubble wrap and everything else as individuals. But I bought a load of them dirt cheap, and as I say, they worked out, as I say, around about £2 or £3 each. That's all they were for that size, the smaller ones. And then I got a couple of the bigger ones were about £5 each, and all the rest of it. As for sizing, It depends. If you're thinking in flight, then obviously go for the size I did, because it doesn't need a massive base on it. But if you're doing something like, these ones, we have down here for the MiG. This is obviously the one. It's just the bays on the bottom and the bits and pieces all like that. It's all very nicely done. It's not, to be honest, the best wood in the world. It's quite a cheap way of doing it all and all the rest of it. But something quite nice with those. But if you wanted one for a 48 scale aircraft, then you're probably going to be looking, you're going to want something so it's not overhanging everywhere. You want something where it's obviously all protected around the edges. So if you're probably going to want, I reckon, around about 45, probably not. You're looking for a base that's around about 40 centimetres, I reckon. Got too many cameras here, I've got cameras everywhere. And do it like that, and you should be absolutely fine. So if you go for something that's around about 35, 40 centimetres on there, you should be absolutely great with something like that. Be my one. Any news on the colours?
No. I think the only people I'd go probably do them is extra colour.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff, or extra acrylics. Can't think of anyone else who'll do them.
No. As I say, I haven't got them. I do touch in occasionally when I break them, and you get cracks and decals and stuff like that. And I've got a feeling I use X3 Royal Blue Tamiya for doing the blue work. That's got to be close, because I've done it before with that. And as I say, well, after that it's a bit off. But yeah, extra colour, as Steve said, because obviously being a British manufacturer, they should cover those colours quite nicely. Right, next, I have to do next here, because I can't read it over there, it's too far. Keep your eyes done. On my lightning fast Samsung tablet. Pause, come on, there we go. Right, did he ask about white as well? I think he did for the TSR2. But anyway, there's another question on it here. Toby says, "Hi Phil, I just started the Airfix 148 scale TSI2 for the Seeing Double Sig. I'll probably be pre-shading the panel lines. I want a slightly weathered look to the aircraft, so it comes with a white tip." Friggin' hell was that out there? So it comes to the white paintwork. It needs to be off-white. Can you please advise me on a way to achieve a slightly weathered white aircraft? I'm thinking of a custom paint mix of post-shading with an oil filter. Yeah, definitely. To be honest, if you're talking like that, you could probably do like I did with the sci-fi stuff, because you go for a slightly off-white to give it that sort of, more weathered look to the paintwork and everything else. So again, you could add with white, go in there with something like an XF55, a little bit of deck tan, but if you wanted to, you could go in there with sort of any colour you like, just to really do it, a slight off shade. But with white, I would avoid going in with greys, purely because I think they make it look like extremely light grey, where you want a more weathered look to it. So I think about going in with an extremely light brown, just to give it that sort of more weathered look. Steve, would you reckon?
Yeah, I'd go with the browns, definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe a hint of Tamiya buff.
Yeah.
And that might work. If you're going with oils, you could do little touch of raw umber, and then if you use plenty of white spirit, that should get a nice tone. But yeah, go for it. Look at your browns, different shades of browns, and
yeah, I think the trouble is when you're going with an off-white, isn't it? It's finding something that looks to, I don't know, like a believable white. And that was the thing when I was doing the sci-fi stuff, because when you look at that, it's never just white, but it looks pretty much. And then you go through the sort of the sci-fi thing, and in films and that, where they're shot under extremely bright lights. And when I'm building here with this lot of light as well, you have to make it slightly darker, if you like, so it shows up on camera, rather than your naked eye. So you're almost making paint for the camera rather than people to look at. And that's why sometimes when you look at my Millennium Falcon in the flesh, it looks quite dark, but under camera lights it's fine, it's all right. So you're almost allowing for it. But I did that one, I think, pretty sure I went in with a buff. It was either the buff or the deck tan, because they're very close covers, 55 and 57 XF numbers with XF2 mixed in to give it that type of off thing. Afterwards, as I say, personally, I'd give it a Flory Models wash right over it. I'd probably lighten up the dark dirt, do a 50-50 split with the light and the dark dirt to make a very light one of that, and then give it a go over the top. Again, if you're going with the grey, it's going to look like grey on it, where you want it to be more weathered, so you want a more of a browny look. And definitely don't go near it with black, that's the thing. Post shading, yeah, absolutely, go right in after it. And then post shading, if you want to take the easy route, Tamiya Smoke. It's a nice one because, again, it's not really painting, it's just a hint of, but heavily thin it. So do 75% thinners, maybe 80% thinners to it. So when you're putting it down, it's not painting down a line, it's just like a seamless one. So 2 or 3 stripes at it later, it begins to come back at you and gives you that correct look to it. Okay, so that's Toby, and we have Michael. Hi Phil and team, just picked up a model of the new Revell Shackleton 1/72 scale, great kit, but the riveting detail goes soft on the top and bottom of the fuselage. What tools would you recommend? What is the what size for scale effect? Loving the Halifax build. Funny you mentioned that, Mick, because I've had 2 people say to me about it. Yeah, I checked 2 of the Shackletons we had here, and both of them were fine. So it's all those weird things where some people have got obviously different, I don't know, the run of the kit, they were early or later ones, things like that, that seems to have gone a little bit soft on the edges. Mine were absolutely spot on, and in fact, when I mentioned about that engine being over-riveted a little bit, some people haven't had that either. So there seems to be a little bit of discrepancy with the kit. As I say, different pulls and all the rest of it coming off the production line. Some are, but mine, 2 of the kits, because I heard about it, so I went and checked the second one, and the riveting goes all the way to the edge, no problem at all. But if you do find it goes off, it is that thing, you really just want to match it to what you've got. So as I say, I use the riveting wheels, we've spoken about it, I use obviously a needle, and just by pressure you can put in exactly the same ones as you go along and things like that. Unfortunately, with all re-riveting and rescribing, there is no easy way. It's just time, patience, and a few beers. Because it's one of those things, it just can't be rushed. As soon as you start thinking, oh, I'm just going to do these, is when you rush it, and then you end up making the riveting. Suddenly it goes from nice and faint and nice to really heavy and overdone, and then you've got to come back from that, and it's quite hard. Steve?
Yeah, well, talking of the Shackleton, me and Phil were talking about it on Sunday, wasn't it? It's like on the wing of my one, you can see sink marks.
Yeah.
Where Phil hadn't got that on his, so I think there is. Some have come out not as nice as others.
Yeah, there has been some discrepancies with the kit.
Yeah, definitely. As for putting rivets back in, I use needles. I've got those little wheel tools that you've got, Rosie the Riveter, I think they call them, but various sizes of them.
Yeah.
I've bought all sorts over the time, but it's just a matter of finding something that's the same size as the rivets that are already on there.
I must admit, I am going to invest in a Rosie the Riveter because I've never had one. I had a seamstress one for a long time because you can get them for doing fabric work, and that was okay, but it was never perfect. But I have decided, because the Rosie the Riveter, which Steve is now grabbing now, probably has a smaller wheel, and because it's got a smaller wheel, it's more controllable. Where I find that the trumpeter ones, because it's a big wheel, you can't really see where you're going with it because it's all a little bit covered over. See, look, we can be clever here. If I put Steve on full, you can show.
Yeah. Well, that's the. Don't know how well you can see it. Should be
that's good.
That way a bit.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's what I want. One of them.
Yeah, one of them, and they come in various different sizes. So.
Oh yeah, so that's the 0.65. Yeah.
For one at 48th and 32nd. And then the other one I've got is mainly for 32nd work.
Yeah.
So I've matched it up really to what I build. I do have another one somewhere as well. But little thing, if you go to Telford, they had a stand there.
Yeah.
One of the overseas traders, and they had a big box with all the different sizes in there, and they were reasonably priced. So yeah, get yourself one of them.
That's what I'm going to do. I will put in an order for that probably tomorrow, and then we can chase up and see how we get on with those. So yes, definitely. Okay, so Grant says, "Hi Phil, just a quick bit of feedback about Stynal Res and Iwata airbrushes. I think something you mentioned about the Iwata having issues at spraying it. I use the Iwata HPBH Highline .2 needle. I have no troubles spraying Stynal Res at all. I don't thin it, I spray it neat, so perhaps the guys are having issues. Could be simply giving the bottle a good shake and mix and trying upping the air pressure to 25-30 psi. Cheers for all your great work, Grant." It is that thing, at the end of the day, if you can get your air pressure high enough, you can blast through anything. But it does recommend, this is straight from Badger themselves when I spoke to them direct, they did say they recommend 0.5 and bigger needles, purely because it is a thicker product to try and get it out and all the rest of it. But like everything, like we were saying, if you up your air pressure and got a clean airbrush and good flow, it will blow anything as long as you can go quite a high air pressure. But if you have got a compressor that perhaps struggles going above 25, perhaps you're going to have issues with it. But I think a lot of it was that some of the guys were having trouble. We were having it with H&S brushes as well with a 0.2 needle. It will do it, but when you've had a bottle for a while, it tends to thicken up. As soon as you break that seal, they tend to thicken up. Also, the other thing I have found, this black, I only opened it on Friday, was it? I think Friday, something like that. And already the top part here, if I just put this on the close cam, I don't know how well you can see this, but as I say, this is a brand new bottle, but this is really, really gumpy in this end. It's really, really thick. Okay, so when you technically put your top on and you open this up to spray it, this bit here is very thick. So if you are a little bit like me and you put that and squirt it straight into your colour cup, that thick bit is going to go straight down to obviously the business end of your airbrush. So you're going to go straight into down the bottom. Everything's going to go on top, and then it's got to pass that thick bit right the way through. So like being constipated, and that's basically the best sort of, analogy I can come up for this, but it's got to pass it, and obviously it's a bit of hard work, and as we all know, you shouldn't push too hard. But yeah, that is the trouble. But this stuff does thicken up. It's not perfect. It does have an Achilles heel, and that is when it gets older, it thickens up. It seems to be as soon as it's touched air, it starts to naturally thicken. IPA is my advice for this stuff. It seems to thin it out with no ill effects whatsoever. The other thing as well, and I've got some coming, might be here today, tomorrow, I've got a load of marine grade bolts coming in to show you, because on eBay you can buy, make sure the marine grade, I'll put a link up to them as well once they're here and I know they're good, but I think it was 100 for £1.49, and that's M4 and M5 bolts. Marine grade stainless steel, because I'm almost out. I've got about 3 left, so I needed some. So I need to put one in there ideally to really mix it up and make it work well. As I have found, I think, when you buy it new, you just give it a bit of a shake up, and not totally. So you're taking that wetter stuff off the top, the heavy stuff down the bottom. When that comes up to play, sometimes if you have got the smaller needle sizes, just has a hard time pushing it through. So there we go. Okay. Pete Marsh asks, I've acquired a bottle of Tamiya XF86 flat clear, but I've no idea in what circumstances I would use it. Any tips? I love that stuff. It is my preferred flat. Yes, I've got one too. In fact, I've got 4. I've got 4 of these. So yes, this is the said one. That's the one you want. Get the light off of it. It's basically flat. It is clear flat, as it does say, but the thing is, what you don't want to do is spray it neat. You tend to get a little bit of frosting, so make sure you thin this. Where's Steve gone? Steve's vanished. Hold on, we've lost Steve just for a sec. Don't know where he's gone. He might come back in a minute. Never mind, you can have me just for a minute until we've sorted out where he's gone. But this particular stuff is you know, no problem at all. But if you spray it neat, you tend to get the white dusty thing. But if you do a 50-50 mix, it makes a fantastic flat coat, no problem at all. This is not to be confused with, by any shape of the imagination, of this stuff, which is flat base. I've lost my mouse now. So don't get it confused with 21. This is flat base, this one here, okay? This is that white gloop, okay, that everyone's got a bottle of but never touches. This is for adding to paint to make it go flat. This is 86, which is this one, is the one you've got, which is just treat it like a flat coat. Okay, if you treat it like a flat coat, you'll be absolutely fine, no problem at all with it. Okay, so just talk about your songs for a moment. I'll just try and recover Steve. Ding, ding, ding. Right, let me just try and get hold of Mr. Sutcliffe again. Sorry everybody, these things happen, it's live. Look, we're now ringing him. Hopefully he'll be back with us in just a sec. He's back. Sorry, I had to redial you. I lost you for a minute. Bit of a panic. One day I'm going to get this sorted. I'm going to have this studio fixed because I'm going to go round and I'm going to fix this bloody studio. Right, the only thing I've got to do, I've just got to get rid of that. There we go. You're back. You're fine. All good. Panic over. God, don't do that to me. I'm like, what the hell's he gone? I get this screen appears and it says your Skype connection's been lost. Never mind. I was just filling them into what to do with XF86 and what not to do with X21. Okay, David Warples says, hi Phil and Steve. Hey, look, he knew you would be on. That's good. I've selected a PT17 Stearman for doing the Seeing Double Sig. My intention is to model her in the Navy training, which means the yellow fuselage and wings. Do you have any tips for painting yellow aircraft? Not just the colour, but technique. I'm open to suggestions on paint brands by Steering, sorry. No pun intended. Forward Vallejo Model Air. Vallejo 948 golden yellow. I'm open to suggestions. Thanks as always for all your help. If you're painting yellow, prime white, definitely, because if you do any other colour it's going to be really dark. So it's a little bit like with red as well. If you put down white, we'll be talking about this because I'm doing white, so I'm going to prime with black. It all gets a bit confusing, but if the thing is, if you put down a white primer, the yellow on the top will really radiate and look really nice. Little things like, I don't know if you do it, Steve, but if you do wing tips or tips on helicopters and things like that, if you put white down first, it's literally one pass with the yellow and it's there. But if you've got them black before, it takes loads and loads of coats to get them to shine through and everything else like that. So literally my big advice would be prime with white. So make it look white, and then come in and put yellow over the top, and it will reflect that yellow and it will give you a very nice solid looking yellow colour to your plane. As for a colour to actually use, that's one thing I wouldn't have a clue on. Honestly, I have one yellow in my arsenal, and yes, you've guessed it, it's Tamiya. That's it. I'm looking at all my paints I have, and I literally have one yellow, which is obviously XF3. I don't even have a gloss yellow. That's really sad, actually. It's true. I'm looking at, I haven't got a single other yellow. It's the only yellow I've got. What have you got, Steve?
Yeah, I'd probably go with something like it's H329 Gunsy's Aqueous, and that's
yeah.
It used to go in this backwards. It says it's Blue Angels yellow. Now, if you look at the colour, that's quite a nice.
Yeah, that is a nice deep yellow. Yeah,
so I'd probably go something like that.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, as I say, the Vallejo one, I wouldn't know. I haven't got any of those colours in that sort of area. So yeah, there we go.
And you know, Gunsy's got to go on well as well. So I think that'd be probably your best.
Is that a gloss or a semi-gloss?
This one is gloss.
Yeah.
H329.
So there you go. You're salted because it's gloss bird anyway, isn't it? So yeah, even better. There we go. Adrian. Hi Phil and team. Question: can I join the SIG or group build once it's started? Yes, of course you can. You can join it right up to the last day if you're quick. If you can build fast. But yeah, you can join at any point whatsoever. Any of the group builds, any of the SIGs, you can join literally on the last day if you want to. As long as you get your full build up and it's all done and everything else like that, then you'll qualify for all the usual bits and pieces that go with it. So no problem with that. Okay, Johan from the Netherlands. Hi Phil, I used the Flory washes on my last project to get used to them. How can I to get used to how they can be used? I was wondering if you can mix with them with the pigment, like the pigments from Vallejo, because I don't have the Flory pigments. Have you tried this? Honestly, don't mix them with anything apart from other wash colours. If you try and put our pigment even with our wash, it won't work. It will all suddenly drop out of suspension. The pigment that's used in the washes is extremely fine to the point where it mixes seamlessly with everything in there. That's why we spoke about it before. The old Flory model washes were really gritty, so if you brush them you would see it, and that was pigment. And what happens is it attracts particles of the clay, scientific now, but it's on a molecular level. The pigment is the same as the clay, so they seamlessly hold on to each other, which gives you the effect of paint, like a watercolour. But if you try and use the pigments are all at slightly different grades as well. We can't get the pigments all universally the same. So sometimes some of them seem a lot more finer than some of the others. That's just because of their manufacturing process. But if you try and put, for instance, the sand colours are very, very fine, whereas the darker colours, they tend to be quite coarse. So like the dark rust is actually quite a coarse one, whereas the light rust is more of a very dusty one. There's not much in it from the naked eye, but a particle count is a lot. And that's what it's all down to. It's all down to particle count and making sure that the clay works with the pigment. So if the clay and the pigment work together, you get no grittiness. As soon as the clay and the pigment aren't working together, you'll get grittiness, and when it dries, it just turns to chalk and just blows away. And that's because you've got the wrong consistencies between the two. So yeah, don't try it. Just mix the washes together, you'll be absolutely fine, because the pigments for all the washes are all identical. Okay. So, Tommy says, hi Phil, I was reading on your Facebook page of a very well-known modeller about his techniques have changed. On a Facebook, I thought you meant on mine. I was going to say, I don't remember writing anything. About his techniques have changed this last few years. An example, he posted a couple of pictures of a model he built a few years ago. He went on saying that the model he built a few years ago looks somewhat fake and overworked and cartoon-like. Well, to be honest, I can't see a problem with the finish on the model, and the reason I would very much appreciate if you could go through the old and new techniques and explain the differences to the final model, to the final finish of the model. I am not posting the pictures here for obvious reasons, but I hope you've had the chance to read the discussions on the comment. See, I don't know that thread. That's the thing, is I haven't seen that one. Obviously, somewhere I haven't seen it. Probably because I don't go on Facebook that much, to be honest. Yeah, I think we all have different techniques. I've got some I change literally like, pants. And then I've got others which I'll stick to where they're not even cool. I tend to find that techniques in the hobby tend to do circle. They're like fashions. The latest one is this black primer business, where if you everything is done in black primer. That was something that happened in the 70s and 80s, and now it's come back again. It seems to be a cool way of doing it, yet that got superseded by just normal pre-shading over grey, and now it seems to have come back. And I know there's various painting styles, and again, it's a bit like paints itself, because acrylics became a real big buzzword, I think, in sort of the early sort of 2000s, that acrylics were always horrible paints. You would never touch them, and professional modelers would always use enamels and things like that, and then the acrylics really became quite healthy, especially in Europe, because of new laws coming out and things like that, what you couldn't do with paints. So acrylics have become quite fashionable to use, but now you've got companies like Mr. Paint the Czech company, and everybody's now, this is the best thing ever. So everyone now is running off to buy their paints because apparently it's brilliant and goes down well. And now, so that means now technically a lacquer is the way to go forward. Yeah, I always thought lacquers were bad for you and nasty and all the rest of it, so that's why we all moved away from it in the first place. But it seems to, it's come around again and gone full circle. So it is just that thing, really, at the end of the day, what works for you. You know, for me, I like my acrylics, I like my Vallejo, my Tamiya, the gun stuff I absolutely love. And if I wasn't so much of a health freak and all the rest of it, I'd probably use the Guns lacquer range and get loads of those in. Because I love working with those, but I do try and keep away from the hot products. I don't like using lacquers and all the smelly stuff and everything that goes with it, purely because I'm just breathing it every day and I don't think it can be good. You know, and all the rest of it. But it does seem to be that sometimes different techniques, it seems to come round. I think the hobby itself is always moving forward, which is a good thing. And sometimes, you know, we take little steps back, but normally we're just pushing heavily forward. Steve, what do you reckon?
Yeah, first with techniques, yeah, they're always changing, and somebody will come up with a new one. Next year there'll be a new big fad that you must do it this way. But I tend to find things that I like to do that work well for me, and I think I get good results from, and that's what I'll stick with. I do like to read up on all the new techniques that are coming out. I'll try them. If I like them, yeah, I'll stick, might try, you know, use it on my models. If I don't like them, I won't use them again. You know, I've never been one to follow fashion, what's in and what's not. Like with products, you know, if you keep buying all the new products that everybody rants and raves about, you're going to end up with thousands of pots of paint.
Yeah.
And spending thousands of pounds on constantly changing all your stuff just because, this is in fashion, everybody must buy this. Stick with that works well with you.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the modern, it's enamel washers, everybody's using that. Well, that's what they used to use back in the 70s. They took a bit of their enamel paint out, mixed it with white spirits, away they went. And the same with oil washers, but now the people are bottling. If they can bottle it, sell it expensive, that's what they're doing. So, yeah, just find stuff that works well for you and techniques that work well for you and stick with them.
I think that's the big thing I'm trying to do these days, is that last year I used to get a little bit of criticism because obviously I used to use my wash, right, which, you know, obviously fair play. I do manufacture it, I do sell it, and it's sort of my baby. You know, it's something I invented, and I just love the way it works. It works because that's what I wanted it to do. But, you know, you get a little bit of flack and it's like, well, you don't use any MIG stuff and you don't... And I'm thinking, well, you don't use mine. You know, nobody else uses mine and all the rest of it. Why should I go round? They use their products. Why should I? But, you know, peer pressure comes in and all the rest of it. And you're like, right, okay. So last year we got out all the AK stuff. We had MIG paints on the go. We had oils. We had technically all the things I don't like using. And last year, that's what I did. You know, I don't know if everyone was aware of me doing it, but it's very rare I was even using my washes apart from a panel line wash and all the rest of it, even though I know what they're fully capable of and can do. But, you know, it's just that thing. I don't want to seem to be pushing it down everyone's throat. But this year, I was like, why am I messing around having a hard time fighting with this stuff when I can do it my way a lot quicker? Terminator, classic example. 2 or 3 hours, that weathering was done, walk away from it. It would have taken me forever with all the other stuff doing it, you know, and being messy and all that stuff that happens, and that's the point to it. So sometimes I think I'm trying techniques to show you guys how I do things, but really that's not how I would do it, if you know what I mean. I prefer to do it my way of doing it and all the rest of it, but sometimes you feel pressured into trying new techniques and doing things because they seem to be the thing of the moment and cool. But my point to it is that if you've got a particular system, a way of riveting, painting, washing your model, weathering it, and it works for you, you should stick at that and refine it. Because if you've got a particular airbrushing style and a paint you use, if you stick at it, you will get uber good at it. Because with all this hobby, it's nothing that is, you know, it's not like a gift from God being a modeler. It's all learned. Okay, so you're learning how to do things. So hopefully from me and Steve and the other guys and everybody else in the forum and everything else like that, you'll see something they're doing and you'll see a technique or an effect that you really like, and you'll think, look, actually that really looks nice. I like the look of that. I want to give that a go. So then, you know, you go off and you'll try it. And perhaps it'll work for you, perhaps it won't. I know a lot of people who cannot get on with our washes. I don't know why, but they say, no, I prefer doing it with oils and all the rest of it, and away they go off and do it. But in some ways, I am a great believer in this hobby that we do is doing the easiest way possible. I'm not one of these people who makes a hard job. You know, we're talking about with the photo etch and stuff like that in this particular build. I don't use every single bit. I'm not going to use the stuff that's not going to be seen or is going to make it really complicated to do. So I would just pick and choose the particular parts I want to do, something that I think improves the look of the model. So on this particular thing, the engines, I've had some people say, I can't really see the difference in them. You put them side by side, it's chalk and cheese. They are well worth putting the correct engine intakes on there for the money you're spending. But if nobody's going to know it, then don't bother. But it is that thing. At all stages of this hobby, you can literally be swept along. You can buy the magazines and end up buying everything. You can get all the new paint ranges coming out and everything else like that, and you buy them all. But I always fall back to the ones I know. And that's half the problem. I will literally try anything, but at the end of the day, I still have all my Tamiya paints. I love them. You know, they do exactly what it is. I will put them in my airbrush, I will spray it any day of the week, and it will give me a perfect effect of what I would like. But that's not to say I'm not to try things. So Steve mentioned this stuff, so I'm going to give this a whirl. This is for masking up with the cutting. It's a different type of mask oil. And then Steve mentioned this stuff. So I'm blaming him for all of this. But this is the surface primer. If we be on the close cam, this is the surface primer that Steve sent me this bottle, bless him, and said try this, and I have, and I tell you what, I absolutely love it. This stuff is great. It dries really quickly, it dries smooth. The whole point of this is actually you can use it as a full-blown primer. You mix it 50-50 and you can spray it, but I've been using it for small touch-up works and all the rest of it, and it works an absolute treat. So, you know, it's not one of those things. I'm not closed to new ideas, because if it's a good one, I'll give it a whirl. But I do find you get people and they're like, oh, you should be doing it this way. And it's like, why? You know, I like the way I model. I like what I do. And, you know, it's refining your techniques at all the time. So, as I say, don't be put off and never be told what's right and wrong or anything else in the hobby. Rant over. Don't get me started on that one. I will actually. I had a modeller message me on Friday saying how he's been picked on Facebook by the Rivet Counting Brigade and all the rest of it. And he said, I love it about you because you will not take, you know, anything seriously, and, you know, you do it for the love of the hobby and all the rest of it. And it was like, and as I said to him, at the end of the day, just close. I know it's hard to with the people who kick you when you're down or want to have a go at it, but it's your model. You can do what you like to it. Tell them to get on with their own model. You know, if they want to do it that way, do it on theirs. Don't have to do it on yours, because you do it how you enjoy it. It's a hobby, and with all hobbies, you do it because you enjoy it. The bit where you start doing it and you're not enjoying it, it's no longer a hobby, it's a chore. And we don't do chores. So yes, that's my rant. Right, is that it? Are we done for today? Make sure we haven't got a... In fact, I don't even know how do you refresh this thing. Hold on, we've got a refresh key. Ding, ding, ding. Get the iPad for next week. Be alright. I'm going to go and rescue it. Right, no, that's it. That's definitely where we are. So I'm going to put a placeholder right in here, if I can. So if you suddenly see this appear in there, everyone, you know what it is. Okay. God, how do you get rid of this thing? This is weird. Okay. And reply. So there we go. Right, there we go, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this with the old split screen and all the bits and pieces. Hopefully when the new card arrives, as I say, I'm still waiting for the big camera to come online. We're just using webcams at the moment. And this little one we have for the close-up, as I say, is the one that I used to use for the original filming of Flory models back in 2006, 2007. This is the camera. So yeah, this view here is the old one you used to see when it was Mr. Hands. It literally still is. Look, we're back to Mr. Hands and all the rest of it. But a big thank you for Steve. As I say, what we're going to do is we're going to get some questions up. So if you want to ask Steve anything directly, you can just literally ask him, and he'll be bang on with your rescue and all your bits and pieces. If Steve's still up for it, we're planning on doing a little bit of a Saturday morning thing, aren't we, as well?
We are indeed. Build along with Phil and Steve.
Yeah, that's it. See, hey, it almost rhymes. We'll have to get a jingle, an intro. We'll have an intro for us. But we are planning on doing a bit of a build. So literally, it's not going to be sort of questions and that, because we intend to build and just talk nonsense. But if you've got any questions or you want to poke up as we go through and everything else, then obviously feel free. But we're planning on doing it every other sort of Saturday morning, aren't we? I'm going to go through it like that, just for a couple of hours on a Saturday morning for a bit of a giggle. But we are actually going to build. So we'll be sort of live streaming from our sort of man caves of something, and we're going to build the same thing as well, aren't we? So,
Yeah.
so we haven't decided what it is yet. And I'm not doing a Missouri.
Well, my vote's for the A400 because we both got one of them.
All right, I'll tell you what, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Which one? The 72nd?
Yeah, that's the one I've got. Yeah.
Yeah, the big one.
Big one.
Yeah, all right, I've got it. It is right there. They can probably see that. It's just there. So yeah, it's all right. We'll do the what do they call it now? Is it still the Grizzly or the?
No, is it the Atlas?
That's it. It's the Atlas now, isn't it? Yeah, I have to get a Sharpie on that box. Change it to Atlas. So yes, so join us for that one. That will be starting not this Saturday. Then it'll be the Saturday after because Mel's working, so that's why we're going to do it that way and everything else. So until next week, everybody. Happy modelling. Take care. Thank you very much, Steve. Give us a wave out, Steve.
It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you very much for helping me out on this one. It's great. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll catch you all very, very soon. And cue the outro.